is The Joy of Being a live stream, coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. And if you're joining us anywhere other than twitch.tv/deepmindfulness, well, golly, you're in the wrong place. Or you're watching the playback. That is also a possibility. Hello, future self. Nice to meet you. Welcome, everyone. We have people already rolling into the chat. What's up, folks? Joyce to be my love. What's up, man? Good to see you. Or, I don't know. I don't want to misgender you, actually, I realize. So what's up, yo? We also have Kiki from Maxi here, listening to Mac Miller. Nice. Glad you folks are here. Who else is here? Who's joining us? Let us know in the chat who you are. That is usually handled by the fact that your name appears and where you are. Where on earth are you in this planet universe? Let's see here. I'm sort of a little obscured. That's fine. That's no big deal. Is that really that big of a deal? Come on. There we go. Excellent. So, folks, yeah, where are folks coming from? What's new? Hello there. MP Burger. Henlo. I don't know what that is. I think you're just saying hello. Hello to you. Lovely to see you as always. Nice to be here with you. Roy says good morning from Kingston, Ontario. Kingston in the house. Tomalin, welcome from India. Lovely to see you here. Thanks so much for joining. As always, it's always helpful to have Tomalin around. That's what I always say. Folks, excited because we're going to be doing a little meditation today. Today is a special day, so we'll be meditating. And after that, we will be chit-chatting about my upcoming psychedelic journey. My journey will be happening this Friday, and it is exciting and interesting. And I can explain a little bit more about the context because it's not like some self-appointed or self-guided situation. I'm going to be guided by a professional, which is my recommendation for folks. Kiki from Maxi from Germany. Lovely. Good to see you here. Excellent. We have Nick here. Hey, I just got off work. Karlstad, Sweden reporting in. Lovely to see you here. I just realized in this moment, Nick, I don't know why your statement about being here from Sweden and you're reporting in notified me, but I've had 0 calories today, so I'm going to have some delicious 0 calorie beverage. I forgot all about that part of the human sustenance chain. Does anyone else do that too? Stave off hunger with water? Whenever I'm hungry and I don't want to be, I drink water. Okay, folks. So we're going to meditate for about 25 minutes. And I had some sense of what I wanted to do today. And it's going to be similar to what we've been doing the last few days. I don't know that we're going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to find out. We used to call it Wacky Wednesdays because we'd make up a meditation. Maybe we'll do that today just for fun. Lovely. Man, I'm hungry. I need some more 0 calorie food here. Excellent. Okay, folks. So what we're going to do is find a nice comfortable position that we can maintain for the duration of the sit. My general instruction is to try to maintain complete, total, entire stillness throughout the duration of the sit, although there are 2 caveats. One caveat is if you need to move. If you need to move, if you find it's just too distracting, just wait a few breath cycles, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and be sure to make the movement mindfully, slowly, this kind of thing. And on the other hand, if you have any chance that there is any history of trauma or developmental trauma, you want to be very careful with the system and not sort of put it in its own little meditation prison. People will sometimes report like, I can't stand meditating, it's so intense. That's often an indication that there's something else going on, which is not a problem, actually. It simply means we need to adjust the meditation thusly. So the fact that you can move the body if you need to, the fact that you can open the eyes, you can adjust, you can look around. All of these things are actually very skillful. So make sure to adhere to what you need more than what you think you might need. So with that, we're going to jump directly in. I don't want to cough into the microphone if possible. Excuse me as I grumble my way through. Okay, folks, find that nice comfortable position, and we will begin here. Yes, meditating when camping can be intense. That is exactly true. That is exactly true, Rory. Are you camping now? I don't know. I don't know if that's just a non sequitur or if that's the case. Okay, folks, find that nice comfortable position, and when you're ready, we will begin. I can tell you're not ready yet. I'll wait. That's fine. Go on. Okay, great. Oh, hold on. 1 second here. There's no card in the recorder. That happens sometimes. I'm so excited about downloading the previous recording that I forget to put in the chip. Okay, ready to roll. Okay, we'll begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths, just feeling the body rise and fall. Each time we arrive at a meditation, we arrive with the momentum of all the previous moments. So, as an example, noticing any emotional momentum that you're arriving to this practice with. What is the emotional experience of the body now? If you're unsure if you're feeling emotion or not, just tuning into the body in general. And in each moment there is part of us that wants something to happen, that needs something to do. And there's part of us that does not. There's part of us that if we were in this exact position, this exact spot forever, would be okay with that. And there's part that would not. So we're going to observe the emotional experience from the perspective of the part that doesn't need anything to be different. if we're not detecting any emotion, just observing the body in this way. It's as though if certain parts of our current experience had a magic wand, they would wave it to change this experience. They would do something in order to affect this particular moment, to move forward, to understand, to reduce discomfort, any of these things. This is the part that wants difference. And if we can find that, then we know the rest of our experience doesn't need anything to be different, doesn't need anything to change. In the same way, we can open up awareness as we relax the body to include all of our sensory experience, all seeing, hearing, feeling, mental audio, mental visual activation. In a sense, a kind of freeze frame of this particular moment, all of what this particular moment is built out of. And in order to do this, we need to tap into awareness. Awareness is the part of the mind that can hold several things together. In this case, all experiencing. It doesn't care so much about distinction or difference between. It'll just hold everything in one big category. And it's important to recognize that this is our current universe. This is the constellation of sense data that produces everything we are, everything we can experience in this particular moment. And sometimes there's a part of us that wants this particular moment to be different. And that's okay, simply including it along with all of the other sensations. Awareness doesn't need anything to be different, it's simply aware. And of course, at times the mind will chatter or think or drift. All we're doing is simply, again, including whatever's in this particular moment as our current universe. Now I'd like us to, each time we take one of these snapshots of this particular moment, allow it to pause, to freeze this snapshot, as though we could hold it in amber. And notice that this doesn't work very well. We try to hold on to the constellation of what makes up this particular moment. And new data, new sensation just pushes in, pushes through, replacing it. So watching this replacement process occur, this particular moment being replaced. Once we have observed this particular moment being replaced thoroughly, we can again take another snapshot, watch it be replaced. And the mind typically takes for granted that our world is very stable. And so we're simply testing this unconscious hypothesis. Taking a freeze frame, seeing if it is stable. And while the mind might have an answer, it is or it is not, it's very important to observe this with our senses. if we notice we've drifted away, simply starting again. Sometimes we have experiences that do not feel like they are impermanent or flowing. It can be helpful to know that even experiences that seem stable are often quite dynamic. So, for instance, the sensation of where the body is resting, whether we're sitting or lying down, the pressure of the body as it rests often can seem quite stable. But it's helpful to recognize that this is a sense of stability born out of a dynamic relationship, two forces pressing against each other. In this case, the force of gravity interacting with, pulling against mass. So while it might not be moving, meaning noticeably changing over time, it's helpful to know that all of these experiences are dynamic. That all of our experiences are effectively verbs, ongoing processes. And while all of our experience is a process in this way, the mind will tell us that it is not, that it is fixed, that our world is made of nouns, objects, stable, continuous. So looking for any place that the mind produces a noun, maybe a self or some part of the body or some thought, and recognize this as a verb coming into consciousness, forming in this particular moment, breaking down, or if not breaking down, then at least formed by a dynamic interaction. In other words, in your experience now, look for anything that is not a process. Look for anything that is not a verb. Where is this solidity that the mind speaks of? And if we have challenges, difficulties, emotional stress, mental discord, allowing awareness to recognize these two as processes, as various forms of pressure, expanding and contracting, within a field of other sensations doing the same. And the mind might understand this, and that's fine. But it's not as important as experiencing it over and over and over. So letting the process be new. We don't want to turn an experiential insight into another noun, something to put in our back pocket. Imagine that we've achieved. If we do have any difficulties, recognizing these as dynamic, as forces pressing against each other, or a sensation expanding while another one contracts, not needing to know what's causing them, because we know the effect. And if we notice that little part of ourself that would change this moment or this experience, just noticing that as another dynamic. This wanting pressure. Just another process among processes. And at some point, we can just ride this awareness, knowing the dynamic experience as it fluctuates and changes, glittering, sparkling, effervescent appearance of this particular moment. Taking a moment to marvel at how complex this dynamic is, creating a sense of self and world and inside and out, time and space, all of our thoughts and dreams, our relationships and connections. All of this built out of this same experiential material. And all of this available because we are expressions of a living human body-mind. This very strange force of life. The same force that animates fruits and vegetables and sea creatures and birds. It is animating itself in the form of human sensing. This strange kaleidoscope that we often take for granted, we don't take time to enjoy. This is a direct manifestation of life, of that same life force that sprung from the bottom of the ocean billions and billions of years ago. This is the expression of an unbroken chain of that life. This is billions of years of development, biological neurotechnology. Not only can we exist in this form, but we have the capacity to observe it. The observation itself being another expression of life. So staying with the practice, staying in stillness, observing the experience of life as it expresses itself as a tiny bit of light entering the eyelids, eventually allowing the eyes to rest on a single point as they fully open. Taking in not only our entire visual experience, but the impulses that arise as we near the end of a meditation, the impulses to move, to engage in the world, the stories and narratives we tell ourselves about who we are, the tasks we need to engage in. And for a moment, appreciating all of these processes. And that enjoyment, that exploration, this is how we teach the body-mind to bring this particular practice into every aspect of our life. Okay, looks like the camera's froze a little, so I'll adjust that. Make any adjustments now you need to allow your body to be comfortable. Make a little stretch if you'd like. Unfold the body, if that would help. Always nice to have an unfolded body. Always nice to have folded laundry and an unfolded body. So what was that experience like? What happened and what do you like now? This is the point in the live stream where we talk about our experience. What was that experience like? What happened? Excuse me. And what are we like now? If folks would like to use their voice, that is often very efficient. It's a very efficient way of getting across what actually happened in your meditation, thereby giving me more material to work with in giving any input or no input at all. Sometimes people just want to express clearly what they did in their practice. If you'd like to jump on our Zoom, just let me know now, and I'll open it up. Otherwise, you'll just be in the waiting room, and I'll never know that you're there. But let me know, and we'll pop you up here. Oh, the chat has disappeared too. Okay, so yeah, if you'd like to chat through the Zoom, let me know. And if not, just let me know through your digital technology what that experience was like. Especially if folks have been here for a while, it's helpful for the new folks to see what the hell we're talking about, because there's probably people who are like, well, I definitely had an experience. I definitely could tell you what it's about, but this is a strange scenario and I've never done that before, so it's helpful for people to know what actually we do, how that works. I've had half of mine. I'm just looking over here. I have my my VR controllers, and I've been thinking lately about, like, I wonder if I should just play this one game. Basically, it's the one game I play is Half-Life Alyx, and I just play it over and over. And it's like, I wonder if I should play that on the stream. This is a gaming platform, which is funny because I don't really game here, but I do game. So yeah, maybe that would be fun. I've thought about trying to like guide meditation while doing Half-Life Alyx. It might be hard because it's really engaging. It's like remarkably engaging. So anyway, so folks, let me know. Tell me now, or forever hold your pizza. And if not, that's no big deal. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna. No one's going to meditation detention if you don't share your experience. Okay, let's see here. Excellent. Oh, okay. Nick has something nice to say. Says, nice. I don't know how I did it, but somehow it felt like I understood what was actually referred to when saying awareness. Okay, and let's talk about that, because we often will use the term, and I want to make sure we're really clear, even though I'm probably going to have to stumble through a definition. And yeah, it is now in the mind, but of course, thought said it knew awareness already. Mind is another sense. Maybe I'm way off base, tricky, wandering into thing. So, in the mind. Okay, so here's what I would say. Okay, so it's hard. I should just have like a rote definition that I say this is what it is and go back to that. So awareness is, and this is going to be very annoying as a definition, awareness is our capacity to be aware. Well, then what does it mean to be aware? To know and experience. So this is the demonstration that I do. You've heard me maybe do this a dozen times, but try it again. Everyone watching, do this now. Okay, right now, can you tell, and tell me in the chat, yes or no, okay? Right now, can you tell that you're seeing? Okay, not so hard. It's not a trick question. Right now, can you tell that you're hearing? Okay, pretty straightforward, right? Right now, can you tell that you're feeling, that you have a physical body? Okay, so hopefully that was a yes on all of those. If it wasn't, then we could try it again. But the general sense is yes, you can probably tell that those are occurring for you right now. What is different in each one of those experiences. Well, in one, there's seeing, hearing, and feeling. Those are all quite different experiences. We know that those are different. We talk about that all the time. These are very different experiences. But one thing was the same each time. It was the knowing of that experience. So awareness is the part of the mind that knows. And it seems very strange to parse that out, because it typically is any experience that arises. You can clench your fish, clench your fists, your fish, clench your fish. You can clench your fists, and that experience is known, right? Oh yeah, I know that that's happening. And it's so closely related to the experience that we forget that that knowing is the same no matter what it is. So you just clenched your fist, now taste the taste inside your mouth. Okay, so now I tasted the taste. Those are very different. Just so you know, if anyone ever asked, clenched fist and the taste in your mouth are different things. But each time the sensation was known. So the mind simply knows things. It is knowing all the time in order to navigate the world. It knows. There are certain qualities of awareness. Awareness is very, very neutral. It doesn't need anything to be different. It just knows the experience. Even if something's very unpleasant, it will know that unpleasant experience, and then it might be like, oh, yucky in the body, like, it feels terrible. But the part of the mind that knows that that is the case is just very neutral. Awareness is we often associate it with being big, but it doesn't have to be at all. It's helpful to observe it from a big place, like if you take in all of your experience, because in order to do that, what it does is it eliminates all the objects. It doesn't really matter what the objects are. We took in this big freeze frame of our experience, and that was all of this stuff. So it's easier to detect awareness because all of the objects change and there's different constellations, but one thing stays the same, it's the awareness. Awareness also cuts through divisions and distinction. Awareness doesn't care about any particular object. So the mind will look at something and take the visual information and turn it into an object. So how do we know that the mind is turning this into an object? Well, even now that you can't see it, the mind still holds that object, right? Even if I melt that thing down and it disappears, the mind will still hold the object. Awareness will just tear apart any distinction, because it holds it within the range of all of this other material, and so the divisions that make up the world, awareness will sort of break that apart. So those are some of the tendencies of awareness. We've talked here about charging awareness with a kind of kindness as a way to navigate the world, as a kind of welcoming. So you can do the same thing we did before. Can you tell if you're seeing, hearing, and feeling, but welcome the experience. Welcoming the experience of seeing, hearing, and feeling. And notice that it can have a kind of warmer, gentler, as though it were just sort of being absorbed, less resistance kind of experience. So a little something to look to explore a little bit. So hopefully that clarifies just a tiny bit. Oh, there's plenty of chat here, so I'll only get to the chat. Rory says, I found today's guidance really helpful. Well, Rory, that's lovely to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that. Meaning it was easy for me to stay with the instructions, watch the flow of sensations coming and going. The idea that awareness is the piece that doesn't need anything to be different is key for me. Yeah, you mentioned this in the past, and I think that that's a really important part, is in any experience, you can check in if there's some part of us that's like, I don't like this, and this needs to be different. Often we'll hear a distraction and it'll feel like it's assaulting us. You know, like my dog will bark, or there'll be someone hammering during the meditation. It's like clank, clank, clank. And there's part of me that's like, even without thinking about it, it's like emotion and stuff is like, no, yuck, no. And that's not awareness. So it helps us, it's a helpful guide. Okay, that's something, but it's not awareness. Awareness is very neutral in that way. Yes, okay. Beep up, up, up. Nick says, always imagined it like mind is prior to senses. You know, it's interesting. Okay, so the Buddhist concept is not that the mind is prior to senses. This is what I'm not a strict Buddhist, but the premise is that they come together. And there's a lot of arguing that happens on whether the awareness can exist without a thing to be aware of. And that even awareness is awareness of a thing, which that thing is, or that experience is awareness. There is no awareness free from a thing that it is aware of. So that's just as we go through your comment here. But it's like the five others, but it's like the five others, meaning the senses, it seems like now, and like the core of me is aware of the senses, including mind. So awareness is the only thing that can be aware, kind of by definition, and awareness is the only thing that can be aware of awareness. So if you ever notice awareness, it's awareness that's doing that. Seems pretty easy in writing, but not really had the experience. But not really had the experience of not being constantly judging experience a long enough time for it to register. Great. Well, it's always, and also we always learn more about this stuff. That's kind of the nature of this kind of meditative material, is that we think we understand it. Okay, I've had an experience of non-self, or I've had some experience of ego death, or whatever. I have an experience of the sensation of the taste of an apple, and we think I know that experience, but we truly don't. And if we try it again, it's a brand new experience. And if we just rely on, like, I already know this experience, I've seen this before, I've understood this before, whatever, and we don't check our senses again, we lose, the majesty, the magic of experiencing being a human being. I mean, we call this the joy of being a live stream, and that's a lot of what I'm really interested in, is how do I have joy? I mean, today's guided meditation was really about the joy of being alive. The existence experience itself is actually incredible. And why wouldn't I train my mind to be really interested in the most incredible thing I could experience, which is everything? Because if I don't, I'm often really miserable. That's my personal experience. So, seems pretty easy to register. Nick then says, maybe the functional thinking starts to register the difference between, functional thinking and self-referential thinking. I'm not sure. I don't know if I know what that means, but I would probably need to talk to you to clarify that. And not taking the latter so seriously. Of course, thought would say thinking is superior to the five senses. Okay, thought is a motherfucker. Okay, forgive my French. The mind, and really the self, and the mind, let's just talk about the mind for a minute. The mind is very funny, and it's very, it thinks it's so smart. The mind thinks it's so smart. But here, let's look at some of the contradictions of the mind. The mind will tell you that there's something terribly wrong when it is not. You've had this experience before, like, oh, there's something wrong. It's like nothing is wrong. Everything is fine. The mind will tell us this. The mind will tell us that the only answer can come from the mind. This is often the case. I find this like in relationships and connection and these kind of things, where it's like, I can't figure it out. Like, is this person whatever? And the actual answer is interpersonal or emotional in some way. So the mind will be exhausted looking for an answer within itself. And often when we're like, oh my God, like, what's the point? I can't figure it out. Oh, it's like so exasperating. The mind is just on a loop trying to figure the world out from its own perspective. It thinks that because it can conceive of things and create platonic objects and hold those in space, whatever, that it is in direct contact with reality. And it is not. Until we can see the mind as a sensing object, as just another thing producing sense data, it will predominate our experience and control and shape our world. So the mind is like a, and the way I think of it a lot of times, like the mind is like a cocky teenager. It's like, I know what's up. This is how reality is. Like, don't question me. Also, pay attention to me. Like, it's like, that's like the general attitude. And the mind is often trying to tell us that it is predominant. This is especially true in people who are like, I'm an intellectual. Like, I use my mind and I'm smart. It's like, cool. I mean, I like that kind of way of thinking too. And unless we can bring our sense clarity as high or higher than that, the mind will always think it's the greatest thing in the world, and it will not have any kind of humility in that way. Jean, welcome. Jean, sorry, joined late. How dare you? I'll second Rory's comment. Today's meditation was helpful and easy to follow, and it is very interesting to me to be aware that awareness is neutral. It is very interesting to me too. It's also, I think it's interesting, I thought you were going to say something else, that awareness is an expression of evolution, is an expression of nature. I think that's so interesting. It makes me think of like episodes of Star Trek where they like have these, it's like some creature that exists, and it's like the crystalline entity. This is old Star Trek if anyone remembers, but it's like an entity that exists in space, and it's like a weird crystal, and it can communicate psychically with like certain extremely high beings, and like it attacks the the Enterprise and all this stuff. It's like, oh, that's so fantastical that could come out of, that could be a living being, and it seems impossible. But it's like, life-produced awareness, this weird floating thing that takes in information and like knows it experientially and then, allows it to be processed within the system. It's like, what a berserk, weird sort of thing. And not only that, but we have the mental capacity to turn back and look at awareness itself. Not only are we aware, like I could guess maybe that cats and dogs and this kind of thing are aware. They have like the sense of their environment and it's just taking in all this material. It's probably a very early evolutionary, quality, which allows us to be alive. But we have the capacity to actually observe that functioning live. It's so cool, so cool, and it takes in the world in a neutral way. Nick says, yeah, I remember that Buddhism says that. Says the mind is a sixth sense, starting to make sense. Well, I'm going to just declarify that, which is that, as far as I know, hey, I'm not an expert in Buddhism, the sixth sense, which is the mind. See, Buddhism is very tricky because it always will take a list and then add another list inside that list, and it's a mnemonic to help you remember things. But it's like, from our perspective, we don't remember things that way, so it's like it gets more and more complex. So it's actually that there are 5 senses, the ones you're familiar with, and then a fifth one, which is the mind. But the mind is actually, that fifth one is actually made of 5 sub-senses, which are internal versions. So we have, you might be familiar, in our system we have internal seeing, hearing, and feeling. Those are parallel to the external ones, but we also have internal taste and internal smell. So those are a little weird because you don't have like smell, like you rarely have like smell memories and taste memories, like sort of a little bit, but the majority of the wiring is mental audio and mental visual. So Shinzen trimmed it down to make things simpler, but I don't necessarily know that it's talking about awareness necessarily as that fifth sense. Seeing your recurring comments here, all there is sense data in a new light. Okay, well, wonderful. I'm glad that's helpful and interesting and fun to explore. Nick also says, so the mind is the actual hijacker. The mind is the hijacker. Who's even asking? So looks like all the non-dual stuff actually makes sense. Who knew? Well, the non-dual stuff, regardless of makes sense, non-duality is a real experiential, thing. The way that I guide people there is to allow them, and we to some degree did it today. We watched the world form out of the same sort of spatial, I don't know, this is where it sounds mystical because we're talking about something that is literally pre-linguistic. We're talking about the sense experience where language and objects start to break down. So it's this sort of expansion, contraction, push-pull of sense data that is sort of feels like you're made of stardust or something like that. But you're watching it form into the shape of, you guessed it, our friend, the mental object, the bell, watching this same material form into this stuff. So if you can watch that and even see the forming of an object as actually a verb, there's nothing but verb. And if there's nothing but verb, then you're entering into the realm of non-duality. Nick then says, mind is only 5 senses, but usually hearing and seeing, so simple, like a ghost version or something. Yeah, that's the general idea in Buddhism, that the other senses are like a mirror of the inner senses, which is really interesting because if you look at people who are blind or people who maybe didn't have certain sense experiences, you wonder, like, how do they experience these sort of things? Or someone who's deaf, do they have mental audio? It would be very hard to imagine that they do, but it'd be hard to imagine that they don't. So I don't know. Hard to test that kind of thing. Okay, so I promised I would talk about my next psychedelic experience on this stream, and we're getting towards the end, so I want to make sure I do. One reason I realize is, one thing I'm like thinking is that I don't have a lot prepared. I usually have like all of this writing and all these different things. So the main thing I want to focus on in this journey is something I've been talking about on the stream recently, is this idea of like a primordial sense of safety or primordial sense of unsafety. And I think that there's a part of my system, due to trauma, due to like a lot of, hectic stuff happening when I was a kid, that feels like there's a threat just sort of in the fiber of experiencing, that it's dangerous to exist and feels like constantly under threat. So a lot of what I'm interested in doing, and again, I don't really get to control the process, is exploring that primordial sense of safety. And I've talked about this recently here, where what I've found is that the place where I feel unsafe, a person feels unsafe or stressed or anxious or this kind of thing, which is, I consider those the same thing, that is the space where they might feel safety. And so, and not only that, but the stress, which says something's wrong, is pointing to that something could be right. It could be okay. And so the stress itself is pointing back, if we sort of follow where it's, where it would resolve itself, we can begin to have a sense of, oh, that's what the safety behind this would feel like. So for me, I'm interested in developing that, because I find when I cultivate that, I feel much more resilient, and the difficulties that come up in the mind and emotionally are much less intense. So that's the very short version, and if anyone has any questions about that, so if anyone's new or is coming back, first of all, hit the follow button. I'm told I'm supposed to remind everybody of that every time I can. That way you'll get to find out when we go live and I talk about what actually happened on my last psychedelic journey, which will be this coming Monday. The journey will be Friday, so there's no live stream, and the report will be Monday. So I'm working with a MAPS specialist. So this is someone who specializes in guiding people through psychedelic journeys for trauma and therapy through psychedelic material. And that's going to be it's very structured. You do a lot of writing. You work with the person, and then it's a very sort of a particular place and setting, and it feels very you make sure it's very comfortable. It's sort of a little ritualized in a way that feels comfortable for you, and then you go through this process. You treat the medicine. In this case, I actually don't know what the person's going to pick. The last time they chose MDMA, and then at the end they chose psilocybin. They choose the substance, and then you go through the journey and at a certain sort of pace. The substance is extremely carefully measured based on your body weight and all this stuff. So that's basically the general setting. I'm not recommending people do this recreationally. This is very much my experience. I mean, I've been sober for 16 years. And this is something that is, I'm working with a doctor, all this stuff. So that's what I'm doing. That's what's coming up. So I'm very curious to hear if anyone has any questions, or if not, then what I'll do is I'll release you into the ether to explore your in-life meditation experience through all of the goodies and processes that you've learned today, to have a nice time, to have fun, to connect with each other. And I'm excited to tell you what went down. It's always exciting to give the report back. Okay, so folks, what that means is that I have a wish for you. My wish is very simple. My wish is, in this particular moment, to notice the formation of this moment. This moment is built out of all of these different sense pieces. And we can add into that a little bit of music after we read Nick's comment here. It makes sense evolutionarily, as usual, that an organism would be conditioned to having fear be very easily detectable and amplified if lots of trauma has happened. Yes, absolutely. That is good for survival. But we're not in a survival situation, maybe a little more than usual, but not so much in most of our experience. Okay. So we're going to add a little audio to our current moment sense experience. So folks, lovely as always to have you here. So my wish for you is, in this particular moment, with this particular set of sensations, watching it form as a powerful example, this verb coming together in this particular moment, this sense of life forming, shaping, expressing itself as and in the person that you are. Enjoying the experience of being alive. This is a key skill that we can gain to change the way we relate to the world, impacting every aspect of our life. So my wish for you is just to connect in this particular moment with that, and in the hopes that this lovely movement of pressures and forces and vibes and jibes might change and affect you, that the direct sensory experience of your life may have a profound impact on the way you relate to yourself and to everyone around you. As always, folks, practice well. Take care of each other, have fun, and we'll see you.